Hello gentle viewer, I'm Karen, this is my channel and you're very welcome. Today I've upcycled a glass jar to make something pretty and I'm going to show you how I did it. I love these desserts that come in glass jars, not plastic, and I can't bring myself to throw the jars away when I've finished. So I had quite a collection of jars, and then I found out that you could get lids to fit them and seal them up again after you'd eaten the nice stuff inside. And so I began to think about ways that I could use these jars for storage. And I made this little pot which could hold trinkets or herbs or even a magic spell. And here's how I upcycled it. So the first thing I needed, naturally, was one of the dessert pots to act as my base. And so I just had to eat the dessert that came inside. It didn't seem right to just throw it away. And I know it's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. So once I'd finished the dessert, I made sure that it was all sparkly clean before I started to prepare the surface. The first thing I did was to spray it with a primer. The primer will help ensure that the layers of texture and colour that go on later won't just peel off as soon as you look at it. So light coats of primer are best. The spray-on coats didn't take very long to dry. I think I gave it 2 coats. And once I'd given it a couple of light coats, I left it overnight to cure properly before I went on to the next step. So the next thing I did was add some texture. I used matte texture paste, but I don't think it matters very much which kind of texture paste you use, as long as you use one that's going to give you a nice heavy texture. And after I'd kind of troweled it on with a spatula, I dabbed at it with a bit of sponge until I had a texture that I was happy with, and I set it aside to dry for a few hours. When it was ready, I gave it a coat of acrylic paint. So I started with an undercoat of cobalt blue, flat cobalt blue acrylic, and when that coat was dry, I gave it a top coat of an iridescent blue to add a little bit of bling. I could have used the iridescent blue for both coats, but I decided I'd save a few pennies by using the less expensive paint when you wouldn't really see it, because it was all going to be covered up. I wanted the jar to have an antique finish so that it looked like something that had been hoarded for many years and contained special treasures. So to do that, I mixed up some Payne's Grey acrylic paint with water and got a nice runny consistency. Then I just sponged it all over the pot, and I kept on doing this and adding a bit more paint until it was well and truly antiqued. And then while it was still wet, I took a paper towel and just patted off some of the excess paint. And then more drying time. So you probably realise that this project needs quite a bit of time for the various layers to dry. And while I was waiting for the antiquing layer to be ready for the next step, I started to prepare the filigrees. Now, I got these from Amazon. They came in a set of a number of different finishes. The gold was almost what I wanted, but it was a little bit too bright and new looking for my project. So I decided I would tone it down just a little bit by rubbing some rub and buff all over it. The colour I used was Grecian gold. I'd give it a little bit of a polish with paper towel to remove any excess, and then set it on one side again for the paint to cure. Before I was ready to attach the filigrees to my little jar, I had one more layer of colour that I wanted to add, and this is a highlighting layer. So this time I'm going to use some mica powder, because I think that will give it some added magic and interest. And the kind I'm using is Perfect Pearls, and the colour is Interference Blue. And once I had it looking the way that I wanted to, I took it outside and I gave it a coat of spray sealer, just to make sure that it stays in place. So when that was ready, I started to get the filigrees ready to be used, and I just curved them using just my fingers. The metal bends very easily, and I gave them quite a, I suppose, steep curve is the best way of describing it. It's more curvy than the pot, because I find that helps them to kind of cling to the pot a bit better. So to glue them to the pot, I used B7000 glue, which I think is an E6000 clone. It's a good idea to apply the glue to the filigree and then just give it a minute or two to start setting up before you try and stick things together. It gives it a little bit more grab. And I'm wearing gloves while I do this, because otherwise I shall definitely glue myself to something. I used elastic bands to hold the filigrees in place while the glue is setting. Now, I'm showing using quite a skinny elastic band here. I actually found that didn't work particularly well, so I went away and got something that was a little bit thicker for the real project. But I just repeated the process of adding glue and then sliding the filigrees onto the pot underneath the elastic bands until I'd gone all around the pot. And last of all, for some added bling, I glued rhinestones onto the filigrees. So to help keep the pot in place and steady while I was doing this, I used just a little box. It was just a little round box that I had inside around the place, and it just fitted the pot nicely. To finish off the base, I cut a circle of cork. I gave it a good coat of impact adhesive, added a dollop of hot glue for some fast grab, and I stuck it onto the base of the jar. And after a final bout of drying time, and this is the result. So the bamboo lid, which I have here and which I've branded with my brand using my laser, it seals it really well, and I think that this is a really beautiful place to hide, I don't know, a special piece of witchy jewellery, or maybe a little bottle of spell oil, or perhaps some herbs. And this particular one is going on sale in my folksy shop. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do that like, share and subscribe thing. It really helps me out. But for now though, I do thank you for watching, and I hope I'm going to see you again sometime soon. Meanwhile, have a blessed day. Goodbye.